All right, so get ready to dive deep into this world of secrets and forbidden romance
Oh, yeah.
with
Oh,
a
yeah.
jealous bridegroom who, well, he takes things a little too far. We're going to be uncovering the forced marriage, or The Jealous Bridegroom, a 17th century play by the absolutely fascinating Aphra Behn. And today, we're on a mission. We're going to uncover the story behind this rarely performed play. We'll explore its themes, and we'll see why it might still resonate with us centuries later.
What's really captivating about this play is that it offers us a glimpse into the popular theatrical styles of Behn's time. Even though it's not considered her strongest work, it still grapples with these timeless issues like love and duty and the danger of unchecked emotions.
We've got excerpts from the play itself,
Yeah.
along with some scholarly commentary about the play and Aphra Behn.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, her life was almost as dramatic as her plays. She was one of the first women in England to earn a living as a playwright. Imagine the guts it took to break into that scene back then.
It was a bold move for a woman in the 17th century, absolutely. And then there are all these rumors that she was a spy for King Charles II, which just add to her mystique.
A spy.
Right.
No wonder her plays are full of secrets and hidden motives. So before we get to all the juicy details,
Yeah.
what is the forced marriage all about?
At its heart, it's a story about a forced marriage, as the title suggests.
Okay.
Herminia is pressured into marrying Alcippus, a very successful general. But here's the twist. She's secretly in love with Prince Philander.
So you've got a classic love triangle there, but Ben cleverly adds another layer of tension. The prince's sister, Galatea, is head over heels for Alcippus. Can you imagine the drama that unfolds from that?
It's a recipe for disaster, that's for sure. We have Herminia stuck in a marriage with a man she doesn't love, pining for the prince, who is, of course,
Yeah.
heartbroken. And then there's Galatea caught in the middle, yearning for the man Herminia is bound to. It's just a tangle of unrequited love and simmering resentment just waiting to boil over.
Okay, before we get to that boiling point, let's talk a bit more about Aphra Behn herself. The commentary suggests the forced marriage might not be her best work. Why is she considered such a pioneer?
Scholars believe some of her later plays showcase a greater understanding of intrigue and dialogue. The characters are more psychologically complex, which makes sense as she honed her craft.
So the forced marriage, while maybe not her peak, still gives us a window into what audiences were enjoying at the time.
Exactly. It reflects this popular taste for romantic tragicomedy.
Okay.
Think of it like a soap opera from the 1600s. You've got love, betrayal, humor, and even some supernatural elements thrown in for good measure.
Speaking of theatrical history, here's a fascinating tidbit. The original actor cast as Alcippus was Thomas Otway, a big deal playwright himself. But get this, he suffered from crippling stage fright and had to abandon the role.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? A playwright known for his powerful tragedies, paralyzed by the fear of performing.
Yeah.
He was so overcome with nerves he could barely speak his lines, and ultimately had to leave the stage.
Can you imagine the buzz in the theater that night? A star playwright, unable to perform his own work. Talk about a plot twist.
It definitely adds another layer to the play's history, and Behn herself adds to this layered complexity with her use of prologues and epilogues. They often break the fourth wall, directly addressing the audience with witty banter and commentary. One of them is even delivered by a woman, which was quite daring for the time. It highlights how Behn pushed boundaries and challenged social norms.
It makes you wonder what audiences back then
Yeah.
thought of it all. It definitely adds a layer of playfulness
Yeah.
to the whole thing. Now, let's dive into the heart of the play. What are some of the big themes Ben explores in The Forced Marriage?
One of the most prominent themes is this struggle between love and duty. The characters are constantly torn between what their heart desires and what society expects of them.
Right.
Herminia, for example, is duty-bound to obey her father and the king, even if it means giving up her true love.
And Alcippus. He's a perfect example of how destructive jealousy can be. It consumes him, leading to suspicion, rage, and ultimately violence.
His jealousy is a driving force in the play. Wouldn't she say?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's convinced that Herminia is unfaithful, which fuels his paranoia and leads him to make some pretty drastic choices.
Right.
It's a cautionary tale
Huh.
about the dangers of letting your emotions control your actions.
The play also digs into this idea of appearance versus reality. The characters are often hiding their true feelings or intentions, which adds a layer of intrigue to the whole story.
Right.
Like Pizarro, who at first pretends to be Alcippus's confidant, while secretly harboring feelings for Galatea.
It forces you to question, are these characters being genuine, or are they putting on a facade?
Right.
It reminds us that even those closest to us
Yeah.
can keep secrets.
Speaking of secrets, Alcippus believes Herminia is being unfaithful. which pushes his jealousy to a boiling point. There's a scene where he murders Herminia in a fit of rage and delivers this chilling monologue
Yeah.
that reveals his completely unhinged state of mind.
It's a pivotal moment in the play. While the setting may be the 17th century, the raw emotion of that scene transcends time. It speaks to the dark side of human nature and the devastating consequences of unchecked passions.
So we have love triangles, murder, a jealous bridegroom, and did I mention ghosts? Because, of course, there are ghosts.
Ben certainly knew how to keep her audience on the edge of their seats, but the ghosts aren't just there for shock value.
Right.
They add a supernatural element that allows her to explore themes of guilt, redemption, and the afterlife.
Before we get to the ghostly part, I want to unpack something else. The play seems to highlight the differences in social standing
Yeah.
and the power dynamics between the characters.
Mm.
How does this play out, especially for the women?
It's an important aspect of the play, reflecting the social hierarchies of the time. For instance, Erminia, despite her noble birth, has very little power to resist the king's command, or her father's wishes when it comes to her marriage. Her fate is essentially decided for her.
And the men. You have a prince, a successful general, and a loyal friend,
Mm-hmm.
all vying for the affections of different women. How does this power dynamic shape their relationships?
You see a clear pecking order there. The prince naturally holds the most authority. Then there's Alcippus, the general, commanding respect through his military achievements. And lastly, we have Pissarro, whose devotion seems to place him in a subservient role, at least initially.
And how does this power dynamic play out in their relationships with the women?
It's clear that the women, especially Erminia, have limited choices. They are often seen as pawns in the men's games of love and power. It makes you wonder if Ben's subtly critiquing these power structures and the constraints placed on women in that society.
It definitely makes you think, especially when you compare it to how we view relationships and gender roles today.
Exactly. And it's important to note that Ben doesn't let the heavy subject matter weigh down the entire play. She injects moments of humor, particularly in the prologues and epilogues. They're full of witty banter, almost like little comedic interludes.
It's that balance that makes the forced marriage so fascinating. It's not just a straightforward tragedy. It's a nuanced exploration of human emotion, with moments of wit and satire woven throughout.
It's like she's giving the audience a little wink,
Yeah.
acknowledging the absurdity of it all.
Okay, now I'm dying to know. What happens after Alcippus makes the tragic mistake of assuming the worst and gives in to his jealousy? Things are about to take a ghostly turn, wouldn't you say?
Let's just say the aftermath of his actions is where things get really interesting. And that, my friend, is a story for the next part of our deep dive.
Expert speaker.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off with Alcippus reeling from the consequences of his actions. He's completely consumed by guilt and remorse, haunted by what he believes he has done.
So Armenia's ghost actually makes an appearance. That's not something you see in every play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how does Ben use this supernatural element? Is it just to spook the audience?
It's more than just a cheap thrill. The ghost serves a purpose, adding another layer to the exploration of guilt and redemption, and even the nature of freedom. Imagine this. Alcippus, heartbroken and filled with regret, is staring into a mirror, just lost in his despair. Suddenly, he sees Erminia's reflection appear behind him. It's her ghost, back from beyond the grave.
That's a pretty chilling image.
Yeah.
What does Armenia's ghost say to him? Does she accuse him? Does she threaten him?
It's not about revenge or anger. She actually tells him that his act of murder has set her free.
Wow.
She's no longer bound by the forced marriage or the constraints of the mortal world.
That is unexpected. It seems like Ben is challenging the audience to think about death and the afterlife in a new way. So Arminia's ghost isn't there to torment Alcippus.
No, in fact, she seems to find a kind of peace in death that she didn't have in life.
Oh, wow.
But for Alcippus, seeing her ghost only intensifies his despair.
Yeah.
He becomes fixated on this idea of joining Erminia in death, believing it's the only way he can atone for what he's done.
So he tries to take his own life.
He does, but he's prevented from doing so. This adds another layer of complexity to his character. He's trapped, unable to find peace in life or death. It's really a testament to Ben's ability to create characters with such depth and psychological complexity.
It's interesting how Ben uses these supernatural elements to delve into these profound questions about guilt, remorse, and the nature of love and loss. What would you say she's trying to tell us about the power of jealousy?
Alcippus's journey throughout the play serves as a powerful warning, don't you think?
Uh,
His jealousy leads to this chain of events that nearly destroy him and those around him. Ben seems to be highlighting the dangers of letting our emotions cloud our judgment and lead us down destructive paths.
but the play isn't a straightforward tragedy. It's a tragicomedy. So how does Ben manage to bring some lightness and resolution to this incredibly heavy situation?
This is where Ben's mastery of the genre truly shines. Remember all those tangled love lines we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
Well, get ready for some unexpected twists and turns. It turns out that Arminia isn't actually dead.
Wait, what?
The strangulation wasn't fatal. She merely fainted, and everyone assumed the worst.
So it was all a big misunderstanding. Alcippus didn't actually kill her.
Exactly. It's a classic case of mistaken identity and heightened emotions leading to a near tragedy.
Okay.
And this revelation sets the stage for a series of events that lead to a surprisingly happy ending for most of the characters.
So Armenia is alive. Alcippus is relieved, but still carrying the weight of his actions. What about the prince? He must be overjoyed.
Overjoyed is an understatement, and this is where the king steps in, acting as a sort of benevolent matchmaker.
Okay.
He releases Erminia from the forced marriage, allowing her to finally be with the man she truly loves.
And what about Alcippus and Galatea? They were quite smitten with each other, weren't they?
The king, recognizing their mutual affection, grants them permission to marry as well. So in the end, we see these tangled relationships untangled, with everyone seemingly getting what they desired.
It's almost like a fairy tale ending, except for the whole attempted murder part. But it does make you wonder, is Ben suggesting that even after immense turmoil and heartbreak, there is still the possibility for joy and new beginnings?
It's certainly a hopeful interpretation. And remember, this play was written and performed during the Restoration period,
Right.
a time of significant change and upheaval in England. People had lived through a civil war and witnessed the restoration of the monarchy.
Yeah.
Perhaps Ben was offering her audience a sense of optimism, a vision of reconciliation, and the possibility of happiness after a period of intense conflict.
That's a compelling thought. But before we get carried away with all the happy endings, we can't forget about the other characters. We left Pizarro heartbroken. And we haven't even touched upon Aminta's story.
You're absolutely right. Their stories are far from over, and their journey took some rather spirited turns. Let's dive into their fates, shall we?
Okay, so let's catch up with Pizarro and Aminta. We left Pizarro, like nursing a broken heart, after realizing that Galatea's affections lie elsewhere. And Aminta, well, we haven't even touched upon her romantic journey yet.
And what a journey it is. Aminta is quite a character, spirited, independent, not one to follow the conventional rules of courtship. She's not waiting for a man to sweep her off her feet. She's taking charge of her own destiny.
I'm already intrigued. So who has caught Aminta's eye?
None other than the brooding, somewhat volatile
Yep.
Alcander. You might remember him as the prince's loyal but often hot-headed friend,
Yep.
always ready to defend his friend's honor.
Oh, yeah, Alcander.
Yeah.
The one who's ready to, like, duel anyone
Yeah.
who looked at the prince the wrong way. He doesn't exactly scream romantic hero. What do you think drew Aminta to him?
That's what makes Ben's writing so compelling. She creates these seemingly mismatched pairings,
Yeah.
challenging societal expectations, and reminding us that attraction doesn't always follow a predictable path. Aminta is drawn to Alcander's strength and passion, even though his quick temper often lands him in trouble.
So is their relationship
Yeah.
a smooth path to happily ever after?
Not quite. Their courtship is a whirlwind of witty banter, misunderstandings, and even a near-fatal duel.
Oh,
A duel.
remember that incident
Yeah.
where Alcander, mistakenly believing Armenia to be unfaithful, attacks Pizarro?
Oh, right. He thought Pizarro was the one betraying the prince.
Exactly.
What happened? Did he seriously injure him?
He does wound Pizarro, but thankfully, the injury isn't fatal. This incident, though, sparks this chain reaction of hilarious misunderstandings and miscommunications, especially with Aminta and
Yeah.
the always comical character Falaccio thrown into the mix.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine the chaos. It seems Ben enjoys putting her characters through the ringer before they find love, but in the end, do Aminta and Alcander find their way to each other? They do, but not without some bumps along the way. Aminta, true to her independent nature, isn't going to simply fall into Alcander's arms. She challenges his assumptions about women and forces him to confront his own emotional baggage.
Good for her. It's refreshing to see a female character who takes control of her own romantic destiny, especially in a play written in the 17th century.
Right.
How does Alcander react to this strong-willed woman?
He's initially taken aback. vehement his assertiveness. But ultimately, he recognizes her worth and realizes that true love demands more than just fiery passion. It requires respect, understanding, and a willingness to grow.
So even the most seemingly mismatched couples can find happiness. Ben seems to be suggesting that love can conquer even the most challenging obstacles. What do you think is the ultimate takeaway from the forced marriage?
Despite all the drama, the misunderstandings, and the near tragedies, Ben's play is ultimately a celebration of love's resilience.
Wow.
It reminds us that even in the face of jealousy, betrayal, and societal pressures, love can find a way.
What a roller coaster of a story. We've gone from a forced marriage and a murder plot to ghosts, mistaken identities, and ultimately multiple happily ever afters. It's incredible how Aphra Behn manages to blend these elements into a cohesive and entertaining play that still resonates centuries later.
And that's a testament to her talent as a playwright. The forced marriage is more than just a historical artifact. It offers us a window into the complexities of human relationships, the struggles between duty and desire, and this timeless search for love and happiness.
So if you're looking for a play that's full of intrigue, humor, and surprisingly modern themes, The Forced Marriage is definitely worth checking out. It might just surprise you with its relevance to our lives today.
As you reflect on this play, consider this. How do we navigate these same dilemmas in our own lives? How do we balance our desires with our responsibilities? How do we deal with jealousy and misunderstandings in our relationships? Ben's play, though written centuries ago, offers a starting point for these timeless conversations.
And on that thought-provoking note, we conclude our deep dive into The Forced Marriage, or The Jealous Bridegroom. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating play with us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.